So today I had this conversation with a person that I'm working with, and we were talking about our weekends. And she was telling me that this past weekend she went to the Grecian festival here in town. It's held at a Greek Orthodox church here in our city. And as a part of this festival, they were led on a tour of the premises of the church, which included going into the church building itself. In the Greek Orthodox tradition, the sanctuary is called the nave. And they were allowed into the sanctuary to look around. And she became very bothered when she was inside of the church because of the icons in the stained glass windows, and also like images in the church of saints, right, of the apostles and other saints that the church venerates. And she was telling me how bothered she was because this, in her words, is idol worship, and how that there shouldn't be any kind of practice like that within a church building. And I just took a deep breath and I smiled and I asked her where she went to church. And I'm not going to say the name of the church she goes to, other than to say that it's one of the mega churches, one of the thriving mega churches here in our city. And I took another deep breath and I smiled and I said, well, we all worship differently, don't we? And I left it there. But there was so much more I wanted to say to her. But I don't know her that well. She's just somebody that I happen to be working with today. So I just moved on. But I was so angry, so exasperated, so bothered by her statement. Because that statement is dripping with ignorance. What she did by saying that, it was simply just to announce how ignorant she is of Christianity, of Christian history, of other Christian traditions. And I just had to let it go. Now, mind you, I don't blame her for not knowing about Greek Orthodox Christianity. I don't blame her for that. The problem I have is that she led with judgment instead of curiosity. And I see that so often in American Christianity, is that when we talk about other traditions outside of American evangelicalism, we lead with judgment instead of curiosity, as if our way is the only way that Christianity has ever been done. And that's really exasperating to me, that's what we choose to do every single time, is to lead with this judgment instead of saying, why do they do that? Maybe I can learn about that, because all of the information for us to learn is at our fingertips, literally. I'm going to tell you a few things about the Greek Orthodox Church right now, but literally what I'm going to say, you can find it anywhere online. You can even ask ChatGPT. I checked right before doing this just to make sure that what I'm going to say is actually on there. Okay, let me talk to you about two words from the Greek Orthodox Church that pertain to worship and that speak to these icons that they have in their temples, in their churches. Two words that they use for what happens in the service, okay? There's the word latria, okay? And I'm going to put it on the screen so you can look it up. Latria is a worship that is reserved only for God. It talks about worshiping God. And latria is only for God, for the divine. And then the second word I want to talk about here is the word dulia, okay? And that word refers to the veneration of saints, okay? Not the worship of the saints. The worship, latria, again, is only for God. But dulia, remembering the saints, venerating the saints, remembering their teachings, that is what those icons are for. And furthermore, in this distinction, right, they talk about how dulia, right, venerating the saints, remembering the saints, this is a window. These saints are a window into the divine, into God. So they use these icons, right, in the stained glass and other images that they have in their temples as windows to the divine, because these saints taught us about God. So they're windows into how God is. And I just want to say, if you have a problem with that, then just throw away your Bible, because the Bible is a window into God. Okay? The Bible is not God. We don't worship the Bible, but the Bible teaches us about God. So if you have a problem with dulia, with this practice of venerating the saints, then just throw away the Bible. Throw away every other piece of literature that you have in your home that teaches you about God, because that is what they were doing before books. Okay, because you got to remember that the printing press is relatively new. Before the printing press and before people had Bibles in their homes, they had stained glass, which taught them about God. They were windows into who God is. Let's quit being so judgmental. Let's have curiosity about the people before us and how they worshiped and how they learned about God. And instead of just advertising to the world how ignorant we are. We're so proud of how ignorant we are of other traditions. We think our way is the only way. How arrogant it is to think that in these 200 years of American Christianity, that this is the only way. That's ridiculous. Let's grow up already.